My name is Holly Jansen, and I'm 31 years old. You could say the story of my silence began with 7 careless words. You're so dull when you talk, Danny. I zone out. He said it so casually. No malice, no shouting. Just a lazy observation tossed across the breakfast table between bites of toast. Derek didn't even look up from his phone when he said it. I stared at him for a second, my spoon hovering over the bowl of oatmeal that had already gone cold. My brain wanted to defend itself to say something sharp or funny, but instead I just went blank, like someone had pressed mute inside me. You're kidding, right? I asked finally. Derek smiled, still scrolling. I'm serious, babe. You're sweet, but sometimes it's like listening to a podcast about accounting. He laughed. That laugh was what did it. He didn't even notice how my fingers trembled slightly as I set the spoon down. 4 years together, 2 living under the same roof. And that morning I realized something simple and terrifying. The person I loved found me boring. So I did the logical thing. I decided to stop being boring, or rather stop talking at all. The first day, Derek thought it was a joke. Silent treatment, huh? He teased that evening, waving his hand in front of my face like I was a moody child. I just smiled faintly and kept chopping vegetables. When he asked what I wanted for dinner, I pointed to the cutting board. When he asked about weekend plans, I texted, busy Saturday, free Sunday. By the 3rd day, I'd stopped checking my phone for his responses. The quiet between us grew thick, almost physical. Sometimes he'd hum to himself just to fill it. Sometimes he'd sigh dramatically, hoping I'd break first. But I didn't. At work, I was the same as always, chatty, competent, invisible. But at home, silence became my shield. Every word I didn't say became proof that I was still in control. A week passed. Derek began making jokes to his brother Mark on speakerphone about finally getting some peace. They both laughed. Guess she ran out of things to say, Mark joked. I turned away before Derek could see my face. That night, as he scrolled through his phone in bed, I saw the glow of Instagram on his screen. He'd posted a meme. When your girlfriend finally stops talking, blessed silence. The caption read, she finally got the hint. I didn't cry. I just took a screenshot and set the phone face down. By the 10th day, his laughter faded. He tried to provoke me, leaving dishes piled high, playing his music too loud, even mentioning his ex during dinner, but I stayed silent. Every movement of mine was deliberate, calm, precise. I started journaling in the evenings. Not about him, about myself. How I'd lost my confidence in tiny cuts over years of mockery, disguised as jokes. How I'd adjusted my tone, my interests, even my laughter to be less much. Now, stripped of his commentary, I finally heard my own thoughts again. Day 13. He cooked spaghetti and tried to break me with nostalgia. Remember our first date? You wouldn't stop talking about some fantasy novel. What was it? He paused when I didn't answer. Danny, come on, say something. I smiled and twirled the spaghetti. He slammed his fork down. This is childish. I picked up my phone, typed a message, and turned it toward him. You said my words put you to sleep. I'm being considerate. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. Day 14 arrived his promotion dinner. He'd made the reservation weeks ago at his favorite Italian restaurant. His parents were supposed to come but canceled last minute, so it was just us. The waiter, a young man named Marco, greeted us with a forced smile. Derek talked nonstop, trying to fill the void I left. He described his work project, his colleagues, the weather, anything to prove the night wasn't awkward. But it was. The candlelight flickered between us like a heartbeat. I watched Derek's face shift from smugness to unease. He gestured wildly, hoping the waiter would see a normal couple having a nice evening. So Holly's been working on this big project, Derek said with a brittle laugh. Tell him about it, honey. I looked up, then shook my head softly. The waiter blinked. Everything okay here? Derek's voice cracked. We're fine. She's being... His words stumbled, his composure unraveling. I finally spoke. My voice was low, steady, almost alien from disuse. I'll have the salmon. Medium. Side of asparagus. The waiter scribbled fast and walked away. Derek froze, staring at me, like I'd just resurrected from the dead. That's it. That's all you're going to say. I met his eyes. You said my conversation bored you. I stopped having them. Silence. Then the sound of a knife scraping against porcelain as he dropped his fork. People nearby began to stare. His cheeks flushed red, then white. He stood abruptly, his chair clattering against the floor. Do you have any idea how insane this is? His voice trembled. You don't get to punish me like this because of one comment. I didn't answer. He paced. Fine. Enjoy your precious silence. He grabbed his coat and stormed out the restaurant door, banging shut behind him. I sat there alone, the candle flickering weakly in the draught he left behind. Marco returned cautious. Would you still like the salmon, ma'am? I nodded. Yes, medium, please. He smiled nervously and left. When the plate finally arrived, it was perfect. Crisp skin, soft flesh, seasoned with lemon and salt. As I ate, the world around me softened the murmurs of other tables, the clink of glasses, the faint violin music playing from the speakers. Peaceful. The kind of quiet Derek had once said he wanted. He got it, and for the first time so did I. It's strange how silence has stages like grief. At first there's denial, then amusement, then irritation. By day 15, Derek was squarely in the irritation phase. The morning after the restaurant, I woke to an empty bed. His side still smelled like his cologne sharp, restless. In the kitchen, a note sat on the counter in his tight defensive handwriting. If you want to act like a ghost, fine. Just don't expect me to talk to thin air. I poured my coffee, read it once, then folded it neatly and placed it under the sugar jar. At work, no one knew anything was wrong. I smiled, led a team meeting, cracked jokes. I could perform fine with precision now, but the moment I got home, silence wrapped around me like a weighted blanket. Derek still talked mostly to himself, sometimes to me pretending I might answer. When I didn't, he'd mutter, "Unbelievable," and retreat to the bedroom. Once I caught him recording a voice memo for a friend. She's doing this silent treatment thing, like full-on psych warfare. Bro, I swear it's abusive. I wanted to laugh. Abusive, I was simply giving him what he asked for, a world without my boring voice. Day 17, I found him scrolling through his phone again, showing Mark something on FaceTime. Look at this, Derek said. See, she doesn't even react anymore. Mark laughed. Man, maybe she finally learned to shut up. Derek smirked, looking directly at me, waiting for my expression to crack. I didn't even blink. After they hung up, I typed a message and slid my phone toward him. Congratulations, you and your brother finally agree on something. He stared speechless. It was a satisfying irony the first time my silence ever made him quiet. By day 20, cracks began forming in his calm. He started following me around the apartment, desperate for engagement. Danny, this is getting toxic. No reply. Seriously, are you proud of yourself? No reply. He groaned. God, this is manipulative. You think you're better than me now. I wanted to scream that, no, I didn't think I was better. I just thought I deserved to be treated like I mattered. But instead I took a deep breath and kept my mouth closed. Because deep down I knew something he didn't silence wasn't a punishment. It was a mirror. And he hated what he saw reflected in it. 2 nights later, I came home to find the apartment spotless, candles lit, dinner waiting. He'd cooked my favorite lemon butter pasta with garlic bread. Derek was sitting at the table wearing that soft blue shirt I'd once said made his eyes look kind. Truce, he asked quietly. I tilted my head. I get it, okay. You're mad. I was an ass. You made your point. Can we talk now? I stared at the plate, then at him. He smiled in relief. There you are. God, I missed you. Missed us. When I didn't reply, his smile wavered. Say something, please. I typed on my phone. You said my voice was boring. I'm giving you peace. He stood abruptly, knocking over his wineglass. For fuck's sake, Danny. That was a joke. You're taking it literally. I looked up calm and cold. So were your Instagram posts? His eyes widened. What? I showed him the screenshot, his post. When she finally stops talking, blessed silence. He opened his mouth, closed it again. That was humor. It wasn't funny to me. For a long time, neither of us moved. The candle flame flickered between us, distorted by the spilled wine, spreading like a bruise across the tablecloth. He muttered, "You've changed." Maybe I finally stopped apologizing for existing. The next evening, Derek didn't come home. I saw his location pop up on my phone once, a bar downtown, then nothing. For a while, I sat on the couch, staring at the front door, half expecting him to return with flowers and an apology. But the clock ticked past midnight, and all I felt was relief. No arguments, no background noise, just me. It's amazing how peace can sound so alive once you stop associating it with loneliness. 3 days later, he came back not with flowers, but with fury. I told my mom about this, and she said you're emotionally unstable. You need therapy. I raised a brow, waiting. She's right, Danny. This silence thing, it's not healthy. You can't just shut someone out. You shut me out first, I wrote. You just did it with words instead of quiet. He ran both hands through his hair. You're twisting everything. You're hearing yourself for the first time. He glared, but there was fear behind it now, the kind that creeps in when control slips away. He stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the photo frame on the wall rattled. Later that night, I stood at the window, watching rain smear the city lights. My reflection looked back at me tired but lighter somehow. For years, I'd let him narrate who I was, too much, too talkative, too emotional. Now I was learning who I became when no one else defined me. The silence that once felt suffocating was slowly turning into music, the kind only I could hear. And somewhere in that stillness, I made another quiet decision. If Derek wanted to fill the air with noise again, he'd have to earn the right to be heard. Silence can only last so long before someone tries to rewrite it. For Derek, that moment came exactly 3 weeks after the dinner, the night I found out I'd apparently become the villain in someone else's story. I was leaving work when Tina, my best friend since college, sent a screenshot. It was Derek's post on Facebook. When silence is used as punishment, it's abuse. Emotional neglect is still abuse. #healing. #narcissistic relationships. #survivor. The comment section was full of sympathy. Old friends of his coworkers, even Mark, all telling him how strong he was for speaking out. For a second, my throat tightened. Then I started to laugh, soft, incredulous laughter that drew stares from people at the crosswalk. Derek, who'd once called my voice white noise, was now weaponizing my silence to make himself a martyr. When I got home, his car was parked outside. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the apartment was chaos boxes, half-packed suitcases, his brother Mark on the couch, and their father Patrick barking orders like a general. Derek was in the bedroom throwing shirts into a duffel bag. "Oh, look," Patrick said coldly. The Queen of Quiet finally shows up. I stepped inside calm. "What's going on?" Patrick turned, face flushed. "What's going on? You've traumatized my son, that's what. Silent treatment is emotional abuse, Holly. It's sick." Derek looked up but didn't meet my eyes. Mark shifted uncomfortably, clearly caught between guilt and family loyalty. I took out my phone and typed slowly. He told me my voice bored him. I stopped using it. That's not abuse, that's cooperation. Patrick's jaw tightened. "You think this is funny?" "No. I think it's tragic that you raised a man who can't stand hearing anyone but himself," Mark muttered. "She didn't mean it literally, Holly." I turned to Derek. "Then why did you post about it? Why laugh with your brother? Why brag about the silence you now call abuse?" He looked cornered. "I was joking. God, you twist everything." "So your jokes get sympathy now." Patrick stepped forward. "Enough. Pack your things, Derek. You're not staying here another minute with this woman." Derek slammed his drawer shut. "Fine." He brushed past me, duffel bag on his shoulder. "You win. You always do." "I never wanted to win," I whispered, the first sound I'd made in days. He froze for a second, then walked out without turning around. Patrick lingered behind, glaring. "You're going to regret this, you know." "Maybe, but at least I'll regret it quietly." He scoffed and left. Mark followed, murmuring a half-hearted, "Take care, Danny." And then I was alone again. The silence that filled the room this time wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. For the first time, I wondered if I'd taken it too far. Then my phone buzzed. A new message from an unfamiliar number. "Ruth M. Mom. I heard what happened. Don't you dare apologize." He needed to be humbled. I stared at the text for a long moment, then smiled. Maybe silence had its own kind of justice. The next few days blurred together. Derek moved out completely. He blocked me, untagged our photos, and rebranded himself as the wounded hero. Meanwhile, I started living. Mornings were filled with small rituals, coffee journaling, walking without earbuds. Evenings were for rediscovery. The old guitar I hadn't touched in years, books I used to love. I found myself talking again softly to no one in particular, just to the air to remind myself that my voice still existed. Then one Friday night, a new message from Ruth. "You won't believe what Derek told me. He said you locked him out emotionally, that you wouldn't let him talk. He told me to be quiet." I listened. "He's embarrassed. His father's fuming. But between you and me, Patrick's the same talks over everyone. Maybe that's why Derek thinks listening is weakness." Her honesty made me pause. Maybe the silence had exposed something deeper, not just between me and Derek, but the generations before him. That Sunday, Tina dragged me out to a trivia night at a cozy bar downtown. It felt strange at first, people laughing, chattering, the sound of clinking glasses after weeks of quiet. But as the rounds went on, I found myself smiling genuinely, smiling for the first time in months. When I got a question right about a 90s movie soundtrack, the host grinned. "You're good at this, Holly." "Guess I'm not that boring after all," I murmured. Tina raised her glass. "To boring people. We make life peaceful." We laughed, and for a brief, perfect second, the world didn't feel broken. A week later, I received a text from an unknown number. Hey, this is Derek. Can we talk? Just to clear things up. I stared at it for a long moment before typing one simple word. No. And then I blocked him. I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. Because silence, once it starts echoing, doesn't stop at walls. Sometimes it spills into other people's lives. And soon Derek's noise would come crashing into mine again. By the time autumn rolled around, I thought the storm had passed. Derek was out of my life. My apartment was peaceful, and I'd started filling my evenings with quiet hobbies, things that didn't demand explanation. Cooking slow meals, painting tiny watercolor scenes of rooftops. Sometimes I'd hum, not words, just melody. My voice felt softer now, less like something to hide, more like something private. Then Tina convinced me to join her new trivia group at a small bar called The Lantern. The first night I walked in, I almost turned back out of habit. The noise, laughter, glasses, clinking, the easy hum of conversation felt foreign after weeks of stillness. But I stayed. It felt good to be invisible in a crowd again, surrounded by strangers who didn't know my silence was once a weapon. Our team quickly became regulars. Me, Tina, a quiet guy named Samuel, and two others. Samuel was a data analyst, dry humor, calm voice, the kind of man who didn't need to dominate a room to be heard. He liked the way I thought. Said I noticed details others missed. When he found out I worked in IT, he grinned. Database girl, you're my kind of boring. I laughed, the sound surprising me. That's the nicest insult I've gotten all year. Not an insult, he said. Some of us like calm. I didn't know it then, but that tiny sentence would stick with me longer than any compliment Derek had ever given. Weeks passed, and the trivia nights became a ritual. I found myself speaking more freely, tiny stories, small jokes. No one yawned or rolled their eyes. Samuel would lean in, actually listening, sometimes, laughing quietly in the middle of my sentences. It felt safe. Then one Thursday, the air shifted. Tina was running late, and the bar was unusually crowded. I was sipping my drink, reviewing questions, when a familiar laugh sliced through the room. Derek! He was standing near the bar arm, slung around a woman with glossy black hair and a voice that carried. I froze. Every muscle in my body remembered something, the tension, the anticipation of being mocked. He spotted me, and of course he smiled, that smug, performative grin I knew too well. Within minutes, he'd chosen a table directly across from mine. I tried to focus on the trivia questions. I really did. But every time I looked up, Derek was louder. He leaned across his table, touching the woman's hand. Bree. I overheard him say you wouldn't believe how controlling my ex was. She literally stopped talking for 2 weeks. Can you imagine? Bree laughed. That's insane. She thought silence made her powerful. Like, who does that? He looked right at me when he said it. Samuel noticed my grip tighten on my pen. You okay? I nodded. Just déjà vu. Round 4 started 90s music. My category. The host called out question 5, who sang Ironic, Alanis Morissette. I answered calmly, ignoring Derek's gaze burning from across the bar. Samuel winked, still sharp. But Derek wasn't done. After a few drinks, he walked straight over to our table, Bree trailing behind. Well, if it isn't the Queen of Quiet, he said with a bitter smile. Bree looked amused, like she was watching a reality show. This is my new girlfriend, Bree, he announced. Bree, this is Holly, my ex, who once decided I didn't deserve sound. Bree laughed awkwardly. Oh, wow. That's intense. I glanced at Samuel, who was already frowning. Derek leaned closer. So, Danny, you still pretending silence makes you deep? Or did you finally find new ears to bore? Something inside me stilled. I looked up at him calm, steady. Derek, I said softly. My first words to him in months, you said my voice bored you. I assumed you still preferred quiet. He blinked, thrown off by my tone. You think this is funny? Samuel spoke up, voice low but firm. Maybe you should leave, man. Derek turned to him, sneering. Who are you? Her emotional support trivia buddy. Samuel didn't even flinch. Someone who knows how to listen. Bree tugged Derek's arm. Let's go. He yanked away. She owes me an apology. I stood. For what? For believing you when you said my voice put you to sleep, for finally giving you what you wanted. The bar had gone quiet. Derek's jaw worked, but no words came out. Samuel tilted his head. Seems like the silence is mutual now. The audience's laughter rippled softly, not cruelly, just the sound of people recognizing irony. Derek's face turned red. He mumbled something to Bree and stumbled toward the exit. After he left, I sat down slowly, hands trembling. Samuel passed me a napkin. You okay? Yeah, I whispered. Just didn't expect the past to walk in wearing cologne. He smiled faintly. You handled that like a pro. I didn't handle it. I just didn't make it worse. That's still handling it, he said. We finished the game. Our team came in second, but it felt like a win. Later that night, as I walked home, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You were right. He never listens. I'm done. Bree. I stopped under a streetlight, staring at the text. A small, sad smile tugged at my lips. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I woke to birds outside my window chirping endlessly, noisily, beautifully. For the first time in a long time, I didn't resent the sound. I joined in humming quietly, letting the morning light fill the space Derek had once tried to silence. Because silence wasn't my weapon anymore. It was my peace. It's funny when people can't control you anymore, they start calling you unstable. That's what happened next. 2 weeks after the bar incident, I was finally breathing easy again. Trivia nights had turned into something more than distraction. Samuel and I started hanging out outside the bar grocery runs, lazy Sunday coffee, exchanging playlists. It was simple, comfortable, no fireworks, no power games, just two quiet people learning to exist near each other. Then one afternoon my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I heard the voice on the other end. Holly Jansen, yes, this is Patrick Miller, Derek's father. I froze. What do you want? He exhaled sharply, as if annoyed I hadn't offered a polite tone. You've destroyed my son, he said. He's not eating. He's depressed. He's saying you humiliated him in public. He humiliated himself, I said softly. Patrick's voice rose. You gave him the silent treatment. Do you have any idea what that does to a person's mind? I stared out the window at the quiet street below. Yes, I said. It makes them listen to their own noise. There was a pause, the kind filled with the weight of words he didn't expect to hear. He tried again, weaker this time. You used to be kind, Holly. What happened to that? I stopped confusing kindness with surrender. He hung up. That evening I told Samuel about the call. He chuckled. Classic projection. You didn't destroy him. You just refused to keep playing along. I smiled faintly. Patrick says Derek's depressed. Samuel shrugged. He's depressed because no one's applauding his pity show anymore. He had a point. Still, part of me wondered, had I gone too far? But then I remembered every night I'd been interrupted mid-sentence, every time Derek had rolled his eyes at my enthusiasm, every small slice of self-worth I'd given up to keep him comfortable. Silence had only forced him to meet the emptiness he'd built himself. A few days later, my peace shattered again. My boss, Denise, called me into her office. She looked awkward, like she didn't want to have the conversation. Holly, I received an email from someone named Derek Miller. I froze. She turned her monitor toward me. The email was 3 pages long, rambling, dramatic, full of emotional jargon. Holly exhibits signs of emotional instability and vindictive silence. She refuses communication and may be a danger to workplace morale. It would have been hilarious if it weren't so deranged. Denise cleared her throat. I'm sorry, I had to ask. You're one of the calmest people here. I nodded. It's my ex. He's escalating. She sighed. I figured as much. Don't worry, HR's seen worse, but maybe consider a restraining order. Already thinking about it, I said. When I walked out of her office, I didn't feel shame. I felt clarity. Derek's world had shrunk to the size of his bitterness. Mine was finally expanding. That weekend, I took Ruth's call. Derek's mother. Her voice was quiet, tired. Holly, I'm sorry for what Patrick said. For all of it. Derek's spinning. He's not the victim he thinks he is, but Patrick keeps feeding it. You don't owe me an apology, I told her. He's been lying to everyone saying you manipulated him, but I've seen his posts, his texts. He did this to himself. Her voice broke slightly. You did nothing wrong. It was the first time. Someone in that family had said those words aloud, and it mattered more than I expected. By Monday, I'd had enough. I called my lawyer, filed the paperwork for a restraining order. Then I started setting boundaries in quieter ways, blocked every unknown number, filtered my emails, told friends not to update me about Derek's healing posts. The silence that followed was different this time, not punishment, not resistance, but protection. Weeks passed. Samuel and I spent more time together, small moments that felt weighty in their simplicity. He'd bring me coffee during lunch breaks, tease me gently about my meticulous notes, and actually listen when I talked about obscure IT problems. One evening, we sat on my couch, laptops open, half working, half talking. He looked up suddenly. You ever think about how peaceful you are now? I smiled. Peaceful or boring? Both, he said, and I like both. It wasn't a confession. Not yet. But it was something real, something quiet and safe. Then the phone rang again. Unknown number. I debated answering, but something told me to pick up. Holly Jansen. The voice was Ruth's, but softer now, trembling. Patrick's furious. He says you've humiliated our family. Derek told him you're threatening legal action. I filed for a restraining order to protect myself. Ruth sighed. Good. I am just calling to say don't let him scare you. Patrick doesn't know how to lose. Neither does Derek. Like father, like son, she said bitterly. And maybe that's why they both can't stand silence. It's the only thing they can't control. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, the weight of her words sinking in. For the first time, I realized the silence between me and Derek wasn't empty. It was generational. A chain of loud, self-centered men who mistook quiet for weakness. And I'd finally broken it. That night, Samuel and I met at the Lantern again. The place was dim, warm, full of low chatter. He handed me a drink and smiled. You look lighter. I feel lighter. He raised his glass. To boring peace. I clinked mine against his, and to people who actually listen. He grinned. You sure you're not talking about me? I laughed a real unguarded laugh that startled even me. I might be. We sat there for a while, saying nothing, the kind of silence that didn't hurt, the kind that hummed quietly with promise. It's strange how a story that started with silence ends up making so much noise. Months have passed since I last saw Derek, but his echoes kept finding me through whispers, screenshots, and rumors that refused to die. Apparently he'd started a blog. Surviving Emotional Neglect, My Journey Beyond Silence. I almost admired the creativity. Almost. He'd turned our story into a melodrama where I was a manipulative ice queen who weaponized silence to torture him. He described himself as a sensitive empath trapped in a cold relationship. The comments were full of sympathy for about 2 days. Then someone posted receipts, screenshots of his blessed silence Instagram post, old texts of him mocking me to his brother, even a clip of him laughing at a party saying, she doesn't know when to shut up. The internet did what it does best, it turned on him. Within a week, he deleted the entire blog. But Derek wasn't done being loud. One quiet Saturday morning, I was in the cereal aisle at the grocery store, comparing brands, humming under my breath, when a sharp, familiar voice cut through the air. Oh my God, Trevor, that's her. That's the one I told you about. My hand froze mid-reach. I turned, and there he was, Derek, standing with a new guy, tall and uncomfortable. Derek's voice carried. 2 weeks of silence, Trevor. Can you imagine that kind of psychological damage? I sighed, picked up my box of cereal, and started walking away. Derek followed, his voice rising theatrically. She doesn't even care. That's what abusers do. They pretend nothing happened. Trevor looked mortified. Derek, maybe. I stopped and turned calm as ever. Derek, you told me my voice bored you. I believed you. You posted about how happy you were when I stopped talking. You only started caring when people stopped clapping for you. Trevor blinked, confusion spreading across his face. Wait, is that true? Derek stammered. She's twisting it. I took out my phone and showed him the saved screenshot. Blessed silence. Trevor's face changed instantly. He turned to Derek. Dude, you literally wrote this. Derek's voice dropped. It was a joke. Trevor stepped back. You said she traumatized you, but it sounds like you just got called out. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I walked away, pushing my cart, leaving Derek standing in his own noise. A few days later, I got a message from Ruth. Derek's been dumped again. Patrick's blaming you. I'm done defending them. I'm filing for divorce. For the first time, I didn't feel pity. I felt closure. The chaos I'd once drowned in no longer touched me. Then came the final straw, an email from my boss, Denise. She forwarded another message, this time from Patrick himself. Your employee is unstable. She destroyed my son's life. Denise had replied on my behalf before I even saw it. Our employee's only crime seems to be maintaining strong boundaries. Please don't contact us again. That was the moment I realized I was truly free. A week later, I saw Ruth in person. She'd asked to meet for coffee, not out of guilt, but gratitude. She looked smaller somehow, her voice quieter. I just wanted to say thank you. You showed me something. What's that? That silence can be love too. Not punishment, peace. You didn't scream, you didn't slander. You just stopped feeding the noise. Her words lingered with me long after she left. Life now feels beautifully uneventful. Trivia nights, work, the occasional dinner with Tina, and Samuel, he's still here, still listening. We're not officially dating, not yet, but when he looks at me, I feel heard in a way words can't explain. The other night we were cooking together when he said, You know what I like most about you? I raised a brow. My thrilling personality. He smiled. That you don't fill silence just to kill it. I laughed softly. Guess I've had enough practice. Sometimes I still think about Derek, not out of longing, but curiosity. What happens to someone who spends their life shouting just to drown out the sound of their own emptiness? Ruth told me he's seeing someone new. Apparently she's an influencer who talks endlessly about her follower count. Ruth sent one last text. She says he's fascinating. He's shown her his analytics dashboard 17 times. I couldn't help but laugh. That felt like the universe writing its own punchline. These days the apartment is quiet again. Not hollow, just still. In that stillness, I've found my rhythm, the soft hum of my kettle, the click of my keyboard, the distant laughter from the street below. Sometimes I record little voice notes for myself, not because I need to remember my thoughts,